Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's probably why the podcast has been as successful as it is because I'm curious and I love people's stories and I love sharing other people's stories with other people. And then selfishly, I call it my therapy, right? I get to meet with people like yourself and athletes and big business owners, like all these amazing people, and I can learn from them. And I always say steal shamelessly, like take from their ideas, right? You've worked really hard to get where you're at. So if I can take one nugget from Andy Brown and apply it to my life, I just shortcutted the circuit to get to success, right? And so that's the curiosity is how can I learn from you to then help serve the world, but also serve my own businesses that I have.
So welcome to Exploring Emotional Overdraft with me, Andy Brown. And this week I'm delighted to have Brett Gilliland with me. Brett and I have spoken in the past. I'll let Brett tell you more about Brett, but he is the CEO and founder, I think, of Visionary Wealth Advisors in the States. He's also the host of the Circuit of Success podcast, which is fascinating and well worth a listen if you get the chance. But Brett and I have talked in the past about Emotional Overdraft, and he kindly agreed to come on today. I also don't brief people before they come on, so Brett's sitting there not quite knowing what to expect. So let's see where it goes. Brett, lovely to have you on the show.
Hey, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me, and excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. And I agree. I don't think you should brief people beforehand. They got to be ready and straight from the heart and from the gut, right?
And that might be a clue already about the way you approach business. So that people understand a little bit of context, can you tell me or tell us something about who you are and what you do, and most importantly, how you kind of got to where you are? Because I think that's important here.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thanks for having me. And your podcast episode on the Circuit of Success was great. So people need to tune in and listen to that, where you get to open up and share and reverse the roles right on the microphone. But about me, I grew up as an only child in a small town in Illinois here in the United States, and knew at a pretty young age that I wanted to be successful. I don't know exactly what I knew success looked like at that time, but I knew I wanted to work hard and be successful and provide for my family and do those things. And so I got into finance, and thank God, 24 years later, nobody's fired me. I'm still in my career, and started a company actually 11 years ago yesterday, Visionary Wealth Advisors, with thank you, my business partner Tim Hammett and I, and both wanted to build something, both entrepreneurial, wanted to build a brand, something we were really excited about and proud about, and how we get to serve clients. And that's when it was blossomed into the idea of Visionary Wealth Advisors. Visionary, really, by definition, is what the future could or will be like. And that's what we try to do with our clients, is try to help them see what we've seen through doing this for decades of what it will look like one day when they decide to retire and live out the lives that they've dreamed of living.
And that's such an unusual in a way, I think, for a child to be kind of that aware that they want to be successful. And maybe that's you kind of projecting back onto you, but you obviously had a sense of entrepreneurship and commerciality and a sense. You said you started defining what success is there, and that interested me. So that was being able to provide for your family and presumably have a family, provide for your family and commit to your community and so on. What did that, as you were growing up, how did that kind of manifest itself?
Well, I think I get to watch it from the front row from what my mom and dad, right? And my mom stopped working basically right before I was born, and never went back to what I would say a career, correct? Like she had a full-time job, right, raising a child. But she did a lot of charity work. She did a lot of volunteering. She ran golf tournaments. She did a lot of stuff in the community. So I got to watch that, and I don't think you really know exactly what you're doing as a child, but you watch it, right? And then I got to see my dad, who was in banking, provide for our family, never missed a sporting event, never chose a work deal over something of mine. And again, I wasn't consciously doing that and thinking it and watching it, but then when I got, into college, and then I started to think about my career, and I, got serious with a girl in college who eventually became my wife, right? Now is my wife still 24 years later, and 4 kids. I knew I wanted to do that same thing, right? I wanted to be there for my family. I wanted to be able to provide for my family. And so I got really clear early on. Like I would have goals written down. I had them in frames right next to the telephone as a young financial advisor who's, banging out 40, 50, 80 phone calls a day and getting told no, 95% of the time. I knew that goal right there in that frame was more important than the no's. And so I just kept taking no's, would get hit, get back up, get hit, get back up, because I was really, really clear about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be in my life. And still, I mean, to this day, anybody that knows me, I carry my journal around with me. I've got my goals printed off in here. I read my goals. I write my goals down every single day. I write down my goals. And I think that's what's helped me become successful.
Really interesting. And when you said you wrote your goals down, I scribbled that note as well. So where did that idea come from for you? Was that again mirroring what your parents were doing, or is that something you learned along the way, or where did that idea come to you in the first place?
The writing stuff down?
Mm-hmm.
I think through my career, I'm and again, I don't know why, but I want to be a student of the game, and I'm watching people very closely, no matter what they do for a living. I watch them and I think about how I can take what they're doing when they're mastering their craft. What can I take from that to then master my own craft? And, when you read studies from Harvard that talk about the people that write their goals down are 96% more successful, or 96% more, likelihood of them achieving their goals. It's like, okay, well, they spend a lot of time with a lot of people and there's a lot of data. I just trust the data, and then I'll go and form my own deal. And then I was also part of a study group, we called them, with other financial advisors. We would get together 3 or 4 times a year, and we'd bring our business plans and we'd share what we were doing and try to help that person. And then that person would try to help us. And there was a guy named Jason Akers actually that carried a journal, and I thought it was cool. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool to write down your ideas. And that was in July of 2005. So I'm coming up on my 20th anniversary, of journaling, longer than my kids have been alive. And I've got all my journals. They're all in my office. For years, I would read them between Christmas and New Year's. And it's amazing what I find through my journals. And that's where some of my best ideas, my dreams, my visions have come about, is by writing things down, dreaming about it, and spending time with it. And so it's just from learning from people along my journey.
So would you say there's an underlying curiosity in you? Are you curious about how things work and why people are successful? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's probably why the podcast has been as successful as it is because I'm curious and I love people's stories and I love sharing other people's stories with other people. And then selfishly, I call it my therapy, right? I get to meet with people like yourself and athletes and big business owners, like all these amazing people, and I can learn from them. And I always say steal shamelessly, like take from their ideas, right? You've worked really hard to get where you're at. So if I can take one nugget from Andy Brown and apply it to my life, I just shortcutted the circuit to get to success, right? And so that's the curiosity, is how can I learn from you to then help serve the world, but also serve my own businesses that I have.
Fantastic. So the goals, I'm just going to keep scratching at this itch a bit, if that's okay. I'm interested about goals because I do something similar myself, and I've seen other people use it, and it can become, the word weaponized is in my head, but it's not. Maybe it isn't quite that, but it can become consuming, and it can become about the goal rather than about the journey. For some people, it just becomes about the goal, and whatever their motivation is, it's about delivering the goal. What's the danger with goals, do you think? Is there a danger in goals that you can see? Perhaps not with you, but
No, I think that's a great question. And what comes to mind, I think there can be danger in goals. And I'll tell you this. So I was the guy, still am the guy, that has a very, very clear picture of where I want to go and what I want to accomplish. And I talk about my F to the 6th power. It's my faith, my family, my fitness, my firm, my fun, and my finances. So I look at the matrix of those 6 F's. I apply all decisions in my life to those things.
Could you run them down again? Because people like me will be trying to write them down.
Yes. Your faith, right? Your family, my fitness, which is my health, right? My firm, which is work, my fun, because you got to have fun in life, and then my finances. So when I make any decision and I get asked to do something, I kind of go through those lenses of F to the sixth power. Of does it fit in that? And then that's where my goals are focused at, in those buckets right there. So any one of my goals is in those 6 Fs. Because to answer your question, I think goals can be dangerous, because what would happen is I would set these, we've all heard the big, hairy, audacious goals, all the BHAG, like all these things, right? That you want to dream big, and I want to dream big. I want to believe big. But I got to a point where if I wasn't hitting exactly what the goal was, then I was disappointed. I was down on myself. And that's what actually one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to start Visionary Wealth Advisors. I was in a culture, great people, great company before, but it was so focused on, you got to do this and you got to do that. And I mean, there's all these things coming at you from a million different directions. And I'm like, my God, I don't want to live life like this. And as my job satisfaction was going up, I was doing well, I was making money, I was doing all those things. My job satisfaction was going down, which therefore my anxiety was going up, right? My emotional overdraft was well overdraft, the not sufficient funds type stuff in my emotional overdraft, right? And that was because goal setting can become very dangerous, I think, if you let it affect who you are as a person.
Well, thank you for mentioning emotional overdraft. And for anybody listening, just so that we're clear, an emotional overdraft is when you subsidize the success of your business or your enterprise at the cost of your own mental or physical well-being. So it's when you're drawing hard on your own physical health or your mental health to subsidize the success or the delivery, in this case, of that goal that we're talking about. And it's so interesting. Every time I talk to people about this, they have a different perspective, and that these F to the 6 is great, because what that's doing is that's saying, I think people should have goals. I think people should have ambition. They should have a mission in life.
100%.
You need a direction of travel, because otherwise you're aimless. But also there's an understanding, I think, that there's a cost to that journey as you go along it, and there's got to be a balance, and your 6 Fs are your way of, I guess, the checks and balances all the way along. You're not delivering any of your goals if it means compromising on presumably any of those 6 Fs.
That's right. 100% right.
So how do you, I mean, that's brilliant. And I can hear people nodding to that. That's a really great idea. How do you put that in practice on a day-to-day basis? I mean, you don't have 6 Fs tattooed on your arm, well, maybe you do. That'd be great. But,
right. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yes.
In fact, I do.
I mean, that would be a moment, by the way. That would have been a moment.
It's a shameless plug. But this right here, this is my journal that's on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon anywhere in the world. And this is culminating of 24 years of my career into one spot to hold myself accountable and to hold others accountable. And there is an F to the 6th power page in here, right? So if you looked at this, I have all of my goals written down in all 6 categories. And this is a 90-day journal. So for the next 90 days, here are the things that I need to focus on, right? On my 6 Fs. And then I go in, and then it's a daily planner that you have. There's a weekly scorecard, but like this daily planner, we'll talk about, you can't really see it on the camera, but what am I grateful for? So I start out every day, I write down, what am I grateful for? What's my to-do list? What are my goals for the day? What was my mood when I woke up today? And I've got like little smiley faces and little sad faces, like emojis, as silly as that sounds. But if I start to have too many of them where I'm circling one of the bottom ones, well, then I need to start thinking about, what am I doing in my life to get back up to having joy in my life, right? So if I see consistently, I'm like, oh, I'm a little tired. Well, I need to think about my choices that made me be the way I am. And that could be the night before. Maybe it was a Friday night and you stayed out a little bit too late with your friends, and, she didn't feel as great the next morning, right? Or maybe you had a soccer game and a baseball game and you didn't get home, and then you ate crappy food at 9:30 at night because, well, that's just life. And so then I have to learn I can't eat late at night. So 9:30, 10 o'clock having dinner for me doesn't work. I feel like crap the next day, right? And I know that from writing this stuff down and holding myself accountable every single day. And then I have, my day. What am I most proud of? My biggest challenges. Did I try something new? Who did I help? And then my focus 90, which is my 90-day goals. I write every single one of them down every single day, right? These are my goals. Did I accomplish them? Am I moving forward? Because here's what happens. It's a reminder. Oh yeah, this is my goal. I wrote it down today because we're busy, right? We wake up, we have a lot of things going. I write it the next day. There's a little bit of guilt there. I didn't do anything that I needed to do yesterday to hit my goals, but I'm writing them down again today because it's a reminder. This is what I chose. Nobody else chose it for me. I chose it for myself. So I write them down. And if Andy Brown writes his goals down every single day and Brett Gilliland does not, who has a better likelihood of winning 90 days from now? You do, right? And so I can be quiet because I could go on all day about that, but that's it. I mean, that's the journal, and it's got stuff at the end. There's homework at the end of the 90 days. Like one of them is my favorite thing about this whole deal. I mean, there's a lot of favorites in here, but my favorite one probably is, if you're like me, I use this phone a lot. I take a lot of pictures. When is the last time, Andy, you went back through your phone and looked at your pictures from 90 days ago?
Strangely, not that long ago.
Okay.
Not that long ago, because
most would say they don't, right?
Yeah, they don't. And the reason I did was we moved house fairly recently, and we've been doing lots of work. So I was trying to go back and see what progress we'd made, because when you live in the dust and the dirt, you don't kind of feel it. Yeah. And I was trying to show my wife, who was getting a bit despondent, right, that we have actually made the progress. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's not something I do on a daily basis, for sure.
Yeah. So part of that is a gratitude exercise in here. There's a page that you go through, and you go back to, the first month of the 90 days, and you look at every picture, and you literally write down what you did in those pictures in that month. Hey, I got to be on Andy Brown's podcast. Hey, I got to go last night and have dinner with all 4 kids because one's home from college for spring break. Doesn't happen as much anymore, right? I took a picture last night. So I know that in March, the end of March, so here in just a couple of days or a couple of weeks, the emoji keeps coming up there. That's funny. That I will go back and I will look at that picture and be able to practice gratitude that I was together with all 4 of my kids and my wife at a dinner, right? And so whatever the things are, it's just a fun exercise.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because what we take with our cameras, we almost self-edit, we self-audit, that I'm not going to take a picture of me probably making supper tonight. But I will, if it was something fantastic, or if we're eating it outside on the first sunny evening in the spring, I probably would. And so we've got that sense of that documentation which is happening in our phones, which is there and probably an untapped resource, as you're suggesting.
That's right. Yep. Absolutely.
Brilliant. So you're fabulous at this. You're practiced at it. You've been doing it for 20 years. You've got the discipline. You've got the habit. I talk about habit a lot. I mean, a lot of Emotional Overdraft is about, I don't want to call them bad habits, but unhelpful habits and helpful habits. People listening might be going, that's great for Brett, because Brett's the CEO and founder of a big, successful financial services company. He's got lots of staff. He's good at this. He's literally written the book, so he knows what he's doing. I am too busy. I don't get time to go to the gym in the morning. I don't get time to see my kids in the evening as much as I'd want to. I certainly don't have time to fill in a journal. If I buy that, it's going to sit on my desk and make me feel guilty, and eventually I'll stick it away somewhere. What would you say to those people?
Well, I'm smiling because I hear that all the time from people. Oh, well, you don't get it, right? And I'm like, well, I do get it. I'm really busy as well with multiple companies and 4 kids. I don't miss anything. I coach their sports. I'm home for dinner every night. We don't work on the weekends. All that stuff. What came to mind is 2 things. Number one, first is a choice, right? We all have a choice to make. We can choose to run around and say how busy we are, or we can choose to design our life to where you can fit things that make you better into your life. So I do believe it's a choice. Now, I have people that work for us, and I have time because I have amazing people on our team, but that's not by default. That's by looking at people as an investment and not as an expense. And so for me, I learned I'm 47 years old, as we said here today. I was 23 years old and couldn't afford my first personal assistant, and I hired a person. My wife probably thought I was crazy, but she supports the heck out of me, and we hired an assistant, and I figured out how to pay for it, even though I couldn't afford it, because I know the lane that I need to be playing in, right? So I wasn't a CEO of a big firm. I was Brett Gilliland, running around like his head cut off trying to find new clients. And I said, you know what? For me to do the things that I want to do, what do the successful financial advisors do? They have staff, right? So if I want to be that guy, wouldn't I probably want to do what the successful people do? Yeah, sure, I do. So that being said, I was also laughing because I set my goals for 90 days. And I'm going to be very transparent because you're going to see how funny this is going to be to how simple this is. Most people think you got to have these 90-day goals, this magical thing that I, as a CEO of a financial firm, we've got to bring in X amount of millions of dollars, and we've got to bring in so many clients, and we've got to do this and that, right, to be successful. Well, again, transparency, last quarter, the holidays, you get kind of comfortable. It's the end of the year. What did I kind of get away from? Well, my fitness probably wasn't as good, right? My daily discipline of reading 10 pages was not good. My own journaling was not good, right? To the guy. So here's my 90-day goals this quarter, January, February, March. We're almost done. 7 times of exercise per week. Daily devotional, right? My faith. I had to get better at that. So every single day I'm reading a daily devotional. Daily journal usage. That's my goal. Read 10 pages. How simple is that? Right? And then another one's called Base Camp Done. That makes no sense for any of our listeners. It's a home project that I want to get done. But look at those first 4, 7 times exercise, daily devotional, daily journal usage, and read 10 pages. So
very achievable.
Very achievable. But guess what makes me a better CEO and a better dad and a better this and that and the other, right? I'm writing them down every single day. So there's my reminder. Hey, dummy, read 10 pages. You know it makes you better. So I sit down and I read my 10 pages. When I read, my mind starts going. I learn something. I become a better leader. I become a better parent, right? My exercise, when I'm getting my 7 days of exercise in, I'm not saying I'm going around and bench pressing 500 pounds every day or I'm running a marathon. If I can do 15 minutes of stretching, go for a 1-mile run or walk and do some push-ups, that's a victory over doing nothing, right? And I think so much we focus as humans on perfection. And I always say it's progress, not perfection. So let's focus on the progress we're making. If you're not walking at all, what if you went and walked a half a mile today and the next day and the next day, right? We're not asking them to go run a marathon. Just go walk a half a mile. And maybe when you get back from that, do 15 push-ups and maybe you do 15 jumping jacks. Progress, not perfection.
It reminds me of the story of my publisher who has run every day for over 6 years. And and she says it's not discipline, it's habit. She's made the habit, and she puts her trainers by the front door. She has to step over those to get to her kitchen. So she has to deliberately ignore it if she wants to get to the kitchen to make her breakfast. So she defines a run as at least 2 kilometers, so about a mile. And that's it. Sometimes it's a long run, sometimes it's a short run. When she's in the States, she runs around Central Park. She has her habits, but it isn't some massive, like you say, massive thing, but every day. And she was struggling with that originally. She changed her mindset from, I'm someone who tries to run every day, to I'm a runner who runs every day. And that reframing in her own head gave her permission and some expectation that she's someone who runs every day, not someone who tries. If you try to run every day, you've got permission not to run.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love that. And that journal idea is so clean and so neat. And I think people think of goals, like you say, as something that's, increase revenues by 25% or, double EBITDA or something like this. That's not the point, is it? It's the small good habits that you're creating, the consequence of which will be that you feel better as a person, you're sharper in your mind, you're more focused, you're more present, and those things inspire your people, and the consequence of all of that is the success that follows it, rather than and that's what I try to explain in Emotional Overdraft is there are habits that are unhelpful, and people say, I don't have time to go to the gym anymore, or I don't get home in time to see my kids. And I'm saying, but getting home to see your kids is the thing that plugs you in and fuels you up and makes you feel fantastic. And that's going to be far more valuable than doing another hour at work in the evening. But it's a mindset shift, and it's difficult to do. It is hard to do, I think.
Yeah.
People do.
I read somewhere recently, it was a cool quote, and I would love to give whoever said this credit, but I don't remember who it was. But it said the only person that's going to remember that you worked late in 10 years are your children, right? It's like, oh, great, congratulations, you worked late. You grew a little bit more. Well, great. But I also still believe, though, the more you can find what you're doing, actually, the more successful you can be versus just saying, I'm gonna work 15 hours today. And I know there are some jobs out there that they have to do that. I get that. But for the normal business person, I think you can schedule your time, and through other people, you can get where you want to go without having to work crazy hours.
Absolutely, evidently. There's hundreds, there's thousands of examples of that. Unfortunately, there are also a few examples of people who get up at 5 a.m. I'm in the gym at 5. Every day I work by 7. I work 15 hours. Those people, and they're the exceptions, and they tend to be the loud exceptions. They're the ones that make us feel like that's the route. But that isn't the route to success. Success is knowing what your mission is in life, what your goals are, and then being able to deliver against them. It's so interesting what you say about the kids there. That quote. Both of my kids are in their 30s now, and long gone, but we're still very close. And we used to go to Florida every year at Easter for just a bit of winter sunshine, and to Sarasota, which is a lovely city. And we'd occasionally go over to Busch Gardens, the big, I think the Simpsons based Duffland on there, didn't they? Or
okay, yeah, I think that's right.
But Busch Gardens, and we thought that was the thing we had to do. And after a couple of years, the kids said, we'd rather be on the beach. We'd rather be digging for shark's teeth and with our mates, with our friends. And you think, these are the things you can't kind of plan as a parent. And the things that my kids still talk about now are the cafe we went to, and there was a lovely little beach right on the sea where they could play on the beach, and they were digging sandcastles and getting sand in their sandwiches. And they remember every detail of that, but they don't remember anything about Busch Gardens. They don't remember anything about
right.
going to see the Tampa Bay Rays. Actually, they do remember that because of the blue drinks. But what they remember are the blue drinks, not the game. So it almost is, you can't plan this. You can't create these set piece things. You just have to be there and be present, and what follows is their satisfaction and their growth and development and happiness.
Yes, absolutely.
So something you talk about, this is fabulous. I hope people are finding this useful. It's I remember looking at your journal last time we spoke and thinking it was, actually, I'll come back to the journal before we get off it. I'm not someone who writes. I write a lot, but I write on my keyboard. I do have notes on my desk, so each day I have a pile of little bits of paper, which are just leftover bits of paper, and I set my tasks for the day from my to-do list. So the ones I must do before I finish for the day are on bits of paper. I screw them up and throw them away when I finish. That's my way of getting that done. But what could people do if they're not write it down journal people? Do they need to be doing that? Is it the physicality of the commitment of that? Or I suspect if you put it on a computer, it feels less real. It's just another thing, another app that just disappears into the background. Do you think the physicality of writing is important here?
I do. Number one, and I'm not don't have a PhD, or I'm not a physician that can tell you this, but you can research all this stuff. I mean, it is a proven fact that if you write something down, I call it a brain tattoo, right? It's going, you will remember it more, and there is more impact to you actually achieving that result by you physically writing it down versus typing it, putting it on your phone, anything, right? And again, I don't want to come across like, oh, the only way you can be successful is if you do it my way. I am not saying that at all, right? If you have little Post-it notes, my wife's Post-it notes everywhere, right? That's what she does. And she gets a lot of stuff done in a short amount of time. So whatever works for you, do it. But there is power in writing it down, no doubt about it. There's plenty of statistical stats out there that will show you that writing it down matters. So
I agree with that. And I just wanted, for me particularly, having the little note here that I can then, for me, is the screwing it up and finish it because I've done it and it's gone. There's a physicality to it. So it's brilliant. You talk about...
quick though on that. So, But also though, if I go back at the end of 90 days And even if I just do this, right, you can see on those that are watching, if I'm just thumbing through it, every time I write something down, like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things I've written down today that I've already gotten to color in the little circle next to it. There is power to our brains. That is an accomplishment.
There's an endorphin rush.
There's an
isn't there?
endorphin there, right? And one of them literally is that I had to go look to see this lamp that was broken out in our lobby. If my wife's like, "Hey, see if that lamp is broken to where you can see it. Do we need to get a new one or are we good?" Right? And so that's so little, but guess what happens there? Wife asked me to do it. I write it down. I went and did it. I got to check the box that I did it. That's a little bit of victory, right? And it's also then I can communicate back with my wife, done, right? Now it's off the list. So there's a lot
then becomes
going
a
on right there.
big victory at that point.
Right. So
yeah, there is. And as you were talking, I was thinking simultaneously, I think I'm going to get the book. I remember thinking it last time and I didn't do it. I'm going to get it because the other thing is I can't look at these bits of paper in 90 days time.
Yeah, they're gone.
They're gone. And my main, I actually call it a don't forget list, not a to-do list. My relationship, to-do lists seem very insistent to me. A don't forget list is don't forget to do. It's sort of supportive and helpful and it's in my corner. But even that's electronic. So I take them off that when I screw up the paper. So it's gone. And then it's just this infinite list of other things to do. So I can absolutely see the value in writing it down. I love that idea. Thank you. So I've read somewhere, and I can't remember if we spoke about it when we last spoke or if it was somewhere in some of your writing, but you have, you pay it forward is a phrase you use, paying it forward. So have I got that phrase right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And that seems important to you. It comes up when I read about you. So can you tell me more about paying it forward?
Yeah, I was, one, you heard me say earlier that my mom was constantly involved in, our hospital, that she volunteered a lot and was on different committees and boards. And so I saw that, you can give your time, you can give your talent, and you can give your treasure. If you can give all three, that's great. So I think early on I saw that. And then I was at a conference. So again, learning from others, right? I was at a conference in Las Vegas. I was probably 23, 24 years old, this new young financial advisor guy. And I'm out listening to these amazing people speak. And this guy, Les Brown, if you've ever heard Les Brown speak, and he's amazing. And he said, if you make a living from a community, you must give back to that community. And he said it with such power and from this big stage. And I'm like, that's true. So if people, right, your clients, or if you're a doctor, your patients, you're an attorney, you work at the grocery store that I can see across the highway, right? You're making a living from this community. Without those people coming in your grocery store, that man or woman checking me out doesn't have a job. So let's give back to the community, right? And again, if that person may not have the means to give financially, they can still give their time and their talent, right? So that was for me, it was big to see that and to hear that, is if you make a living from the community, you must give back. It didn't say you can, it says you must give back to that community. And so that's what we've done. And so we founded in 2007, my wife and I. Unfortunately, her mom, grandma, and 2 of her aunts were all diagnosed with cancer within about a 7-month period. One of the aunts unfortunately passed away. The others, survived and are still surviving all these years later. And we started a charity called Swing for Hope, FORE, like you'd scream at a golf course for. So Swing for Hope. And we help families, local families, our local Siteman Cancer Center here in St. Louis, Missouri. We help them and we support the local families that have been stricken by the word cancer when they need help financially.
And again, I'm thinking the people listening going, how does he fit this in? How does he fit this in? But it goes back, I suppose, to your balancing your 6 Fs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's through other people, right? I mean, it's not like I can sit here and say, I'm the only one that's making this happen for Swing for Hope. I mean, my wife works really hard. We have a board of directors that are very involved in what we do. They have a passion behind the mission of serving our community by helping people, like, put a new filter in their house so they can breathe clean air because of the type of cancer they have, or getting them to and from treatments. There's all sorts of ways that we can help, and paying their mortgage payment because they can't work and make any money right now because of their sickness. So there's a lot of people behind that. In our firm, we have amazing staff and amazing financial advisors that we can go out and make an impact and help people achieve a future greater than their past. That's our firm's mission. It's on the back of this microphone right here, F greater than P. It's the name of the journal, Achieving a Future Greater Than Your Past. If we can all work toward the common theme of helping people achieve a future greater than their past, wouldn't Earth be a better place? Yeah, it would, right? So
Undoubtedly,
it's a
undoubtedly.
lot of people that come together with the common mission of helping people achieve a future greater than their past. And my assistant, Robin, who's been with me since 2005, has a great one. She says, Brett, I work with Brett, but the way I look at it is he makes the dreams happen. I process the dreams. Right. So what a cool way to look at that from an administrative position. She knows she's helping process dreams for people, right? They're the most important thing that we all have. And so it's all how you look at it. She's processing dreams to help people achieve a future greater than their past.
I love that. And one of us, I had an email today from my PA, Jenny, or JJ, who is great. And she reminded me that we've been working together for 1 year today.
Oh, cool.
And she just dropped me a little email and said, thank you. And it was really touching, but she feels we're part of a mission and that we're doing something together, and that her part of it is, I mean, she hasn't described it like Robin did, but I think that's how you take people with you. That's it. It's not a question of being able to delegate or being able to, it's the clarity of the mission, isn't it? Is what are we all in this for to do? How should we feel at the end of the day? And are we feeling that way or not? And that's the best test of, for feeling is an emotion, if you want to see it that way. But how are we feeling about ourselves and about our community and about our family and about our team? And how are they feeling? That's the best measure of if we're delivering our goals or not, I guess, on top of the quant stuff. That's fantastic. And by the way, Robin is amazing. What an organizational machine she is.
She is. She's very, very good.
Yeah, brilliant. As are you, Jenny, if you're listening. So,
they both got us here together today.
They sure did. Yeah, exactly. And actually, there's a really serious point there, which is the reason I found Jenny. I was lucky enough to find Jenny, or she chose me. Is that I realized I was spending 6 hours a week reorganizing my diary. 6 hours a week, just constant, because it's packed. And if one thing moves, all the other things have to move around it, and I have to be accommodating to my clients. I can't be intransigent. Life is, sometimes things move, so I have to do that. And I realized that first, I'm not very good at it, so I'd reorganize meetings and forget to invite the client to it. It'd be in my calendar. I was terrible because I was rushing off to do something else. So I'm not a professional at that. But also the 6 hours, I am good at some things. I'm really good at some things, and I could be doing those instead of organizing my diary. So it's a bit like you at 23 or 24 when you got your first member of staff. I just thought it's nonsense. I could get those 6 hours back and do something that's really impactful, that's really going to make a difference and help deliver my mission, which is really to talk about emotional overdraft and help people find a better balance in their life. And it's been a game changer for me because I'm in calls like this, and I know that whilst we're talking, Jenny is back there sorting out that meeting this morning that's going to move 3 other meetings, and it'll just happen. And people love her, and they get grumpy with me, but they love her. So she does this incredible job, which doesn't cost me very much in the scheme of things, because those 6 hours coming back to me every week are far more valuable than the money I pay Jenny, who is a professional and doesn't get it wrong. So I'm making a rather clumsy point about emotional overdraft here for our listeners, which is you don't have, if you've got a problem or a challenge and the answer is keep coming back to you, if you keep finding that you are the answer, you've got to find a different way of asking that question, because you are not the answer. That's not scalable. That isn't sustainable. That's going to be at the cost of something else. And I think these 6 Fs are so interesting, because if you are staying longer at work and working later and you don't feel you can go home because your team are working late, so you should be there and work late as well just to appear supportive, what amongst those other Fs, the faith, the family, your fitness, your finances, your sense of fun, the work, what's suffering? Where's the deficit happening in those 6 Fs? It's a lovely model to look at, and I'm just encouraging people to get the book, have a look, get the journal on Amazon. Only hesitated because get it anywhere other than Amazon. But I guess Amazon's the place where they can get it, really, isn't it? Particularly if they're
Yes.
outside of the States. So get it on Amazon. But have that sense of taking those 6 F's away and thinking about everything you're doing slightly more holistically. So there's more balance amongst those things. I think we've got. I always think. I think you might have said it earlier on as well. I always think if you can take one thing away, you said you go to a conference, and if you could take one thing away each time, then you gain all this knowledge. I think we've given people half a dozen things here to think about. If there was something that you were going to share that you haven't maybe mentioned yet, that would help people who are in their emotional overdraft, who are feeling like they're struggling with their fitness or their health or their mental health at the moment, because they can't find another way to run their business or to do what they need to get done. Is there something that you do or that you find of because you're an exemplar of how this is done in terms of the time with your family. You don't work at weekends. To some people, when you're sort of in the depths of an emotional overdraft, that feels unrealistic and unachievable. What would you suggest to people? What could they do straight after this podcast? What could they do that would be something that would help them start to change it immediately? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, I'll go a couple directions if that's okay. It is one.
By the way, listeners, Brett didn't know that question was coming. This is authentic, straight from Brett. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, because I hear it all the time from people, and it's like I don't want to say frustrated when people say I can't do this, right? Because I don't know everybody's life, right? I don't know what they have going on. But I would just challenge people to believe that you can, right? It's all about what you think about. And I remember one time my second son, Drew, he was real little and he was trying to put his seatbelt on and he's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I didn't create this quote. I think this was Henry Ford or somebody said this, was like, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. Either way, you are right. And I said that to him. I said, do you think you can put the seatbelt on? And he's kind of like in his sweet little face. He's like, yeah. I said, then see if you can put your seatbelt on. I'm happy to go help him, right? But he can absolutely do this on his own. And you know what he did? He put his seatbelt on. And so that little silly little story, I think I would challenge the person that says I can't. I will challenge them back to say I can. Again, multiple companies, children, right? You can find time to do it. And here's another thing I would say is I love golf. I love playing golf and I've played it my whole life. When I was a young financial advisor, I would go out on Friday afternoons and I would play golf and I would play like absolute crap. Why? Because I was guilty. I was guilty that I wasn't in the office working. I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do to have next week prepared. So I came up and I played a game. So my game for myself, I would tell your listeners, sit down for 10 minutes, create a game with yourself, gamify something to where you can go do the things that you say you don't have time for, make it a game, build it in. Because here's what I learned. When I started scheduling it and getting it done, I became way more productive in my time. So now I schedule a lot of stuff. I play a lot of golf. I do a lot of work, but I go to a lot of kids' games, right? I do a lot of stuff. So my point is I played guilt-free golf, GFG, guilt-free golf. What I had to do was make a certain amount of phone calls that week. What I had to do was keep a certain amount of meetings that week. What I had to do was have a certain amount of meetings on my calendar for next week and the following week. If I hit those 3 metrics, I could go play golf. And wasn't it amazing how much better I played? Why? I did everything I needed to do. Could I do more? Sure I could. But if I'm not taking time to go recharge, just like you recharge your iPhone, every single day, you plug it in without thinking about it. We never think about plugging ourselves back in, do we? We just go. Next thing I know, I wake up, I have emotional overdraft, right? It just doesn't work. Find the hobby. If that's running, if that's an exercise, if it's reading a good book, if it's going out in nature, if it's playing golf, it's going and having coffee or lunch with a friend, book the dang thing and then make everything else happen and set yourself up a game to go play guilt-free golf.
So many things I'd like to add, but I want to finish with that because that is such good advice. Such good advice, Brett. And I knew you'd have it because you're full of this insight. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing that and sharing that so openly. You're
Absolutely.
an absolute
It's been
star.
fun being with you.
And if people want to find out more about you and more about what you do, where would they go? And
Yeah, I'm on all the social channels. I think I'm Brett G. Gilliland on Instagram, Brett Gilliland on LinkedIn, all those things. You can go to brettgilliland.com, and you can also go to visionarywealthadvisors.com, circuitofsuccess.com. There's all sorts of places you can find me. Just maybe there's 3 Brett Gillilands if you Google us. We're out there in the States that you can find something, but I'm out there and you can find me, and I look forward to connecting with any of your listeners.
fantastic. There's a group on LinkedIn called I'm Andy Brown, and there's 76 of us.
That's funny.
That's so
That's
many
awesome.
Andy Browns. At least you've got a name that's a little bit unique.
Yeah, one of them's a college football coach, and I don't know how my cell phone is on this recruiter list. I get called to get recruited to go coach football somewhere at some universities, and I'm like, you got the wrong dude.
It's good money, isn't it? Maybe once.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Fantastic. Brett, thank you so much for joining us. That's been brilliant. And don't forget, Brett's book is on Amazon. It's really worth a look, I promise you. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you so much.
Well. Sometimes I have people on Exploring Emotional Overdraft who have been in the depths of despair and have found a way to get themselves out of it, and they share something with us. Sometimes we have people on who have just got it together, and sometimes it's easy to think someone like Brett is incredibly successful. But if you listen to what he was really saying, really listen to what Brett was saying, he's been incredibly deliberate all through his life. He's been really determined and focused on what he's doing in order to achieve what he's achieved. And the result of that is he's got 4 kids. He's got time for them. He can go to their games. He contributes to his community. And so there's a lot we can learn from Brett, and there's a lot to listen to there. I regret not buying the book. I mean, last time we spoke, and it was a while ago, I went and looked at it, and time moved on. I didn't. I do think that the journal sounds like a really interesting idea, and it's got so much in it that even if you don't start journaling, because it's not for everybody, you're going to take a lot of value out of it. So I'd encourage you to go and have a look, and I promise I will. So challenge me next time you see me if we ever meet up and say, "Are you doing it, Andy? What are you doing with Brett's journal?" But I also wanted to mention a couple of things just at the end. I mean, definitely the 6 Fs: faith, family, fitness, finances, fun, and firm, or work. What a useful little mantra to little demeans it. I don't mean that, but short mantra to take with you. He also dropped in, without even getting back to it, was you got time, talent, and treasure. Did you spot that? You can, if you want to contribute, you can contribute your time, your talent, or your treasure, and all of them if you can. I thought that was a lovely way of paying forward. But his last 2 points was the believe that you can. I didn't want to interrupt Brett because I loved where he was going with it, but there's some research about skiing, and what it says is if you're downhill skiing in woods, in trees, and I don't ski, but I've read the research. If you focus on the gap between the trees, then you will ski between the trees, in the gaps, and you can do it at quite high speed. If you focus on not hitting the trees, you will hit the trees. So the point is, he was saying that believe that you can, not that you can't, isn't some kind of blind faith or, I believe I can be a millionaire, I can believe. It's not that. I think what he was saying is that ski for the gaps. Find the positivity, find the positive reframing of what you're thinking about, and ski for the gaps. The can't is thinking about not hitting the trees. So that was my first thought on that one. And the guilt-free golf, the idea of being able to play golf on a Friday afternoon is really interesting to me. Not because I play golf, because I don't. I'm definitely someone who the Oscar Wilde quote, was it Oscar Wilde who said it's a good walk, golf is a good walk ruined? I don't believe that quite, but I think it's a very funny quote. But I have found time in my calendar. I use a personal trainer to lift weights, um, 2 or 3 times a week, twice a week. But what I don't do is stretch enough. I definitely don't stretch enough, and I'm becoming stiffer. So I wanted to take up Pilates. I promised a friend of mine, actually on a previous, if you heard the Anthony Mayfield podcast, he promised to do more yoga and I promised to do Pilates. And I saw Anthony the other day and he has not started the yoga and I haven't started the Pilates. I have signed up, so I've got a bit of the way there. But I worked with Jenny, my PA, and she's now scheduled that into my calendar. So we found a day that works for me, and I'm going to do half an hour of Pilates, beginners, real stiff old man Pilates to start with. But I'm going to get it in. I'm going to make sure it happens. And now Jenny and Anthony are going to hold me to account. And that's really helpful to me. It helps me when other people, I know that if I'm letting other people down, I won't let them down. I will do anything to not let them down. So I think whereas if it was just on me, I wouldn't do it. So I love the idea of guilt-free golf, but I'd also look for accountability. So the first thought was around priorities. I think I'm talking about, you can do it because you just you don't but you deprioritize something else. So you can do things, but also ski for the gaps. Don't avoid the trees. Try to avoid the trees. And the second one is if you're struggling to stick with your new habits and stick with the stuff that you know is good for you, then get someone to hold you to account. Get someone involved. Rope them in. Ask them to help. And Anthony and I met at a conference last week, and the first thing, we saw each other across the room, and both of us kind of went, "Oh yeah," and we knew what each other were thinking. So I thought I'll make a beeline for him and see what he's done. And we need to do these things, and that's some of us work that way. So look for accountability. Take the 6 Fs. Take some of those ideas if they work for you. I hope that helps. It's going to do some things for me. It's definitely going to help me. Brett's doing really good stuff. I would definitely listen to his podcast. It's so interesting, his view of the world. But I hope you found that useful. If you did, please subscribe. Please tell other people, because the more listeners we get, the better. And if you are a listener, leave a little review if you want to, or 5 stars or whatever it is you like to do. But thanks for joining me. I hope that was a good one, and I'll see you next time.